military. She's looking to come to the Washington, D.C. area. Could you talk to her a little bit about the D.C. area? And maybe if she can, maybe look out after her.
Can't hear you, Ron.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So, called her up, started talking. And a couple days later, I called her back. She had more questions. We talked again. And we never stopped talking. So, that was in February. March rolls through. We're still talking. I said, you know,
Mike.
she's the kind of person I need in my life, kind of balance me out. So, we kept talking. So April rolls around. I said, you know, this is the right move. So I asked her to marry me, sight unseen. She said, yes. And I said, now, we've been really clear about what kind of person I am. So I made me think about that for a day or so. She said, no, I'm good. I said, yeah. Okay, fine. So we made plans, and I went out and saw her over the Memorial Day weekend, spent time that weekend. And I had a ring that had already been made years before by a jeweler friend of mine. And I wanted her to have the ring. So he said, well, you know, what if that's not the ring she likes? I said, well, that means she's not the person for me. We'll just walk over. I said, well, my father got engaged. My mother, he gave her what he could afford, and she was happy to have it. I said, so let's stick with that. So we went to Disneyland, and met some other friends that were out at military bases. We all got together, and I had a picture of the ring. She didn't know I had the actual ring. I gave it to my friend. So we stopped at one of the little rest areas in Disneyland, and she said, can I have that picture? I want to show my girlfriends. I said, okay. I gave her the picture, and they're screaming and yelling and going on. I got the ring from my buddy. I said, you know, the picture looks good, but the actual ring looks better. And I gave it to her. She was crazy. So we're in the middle of Disneyland. So there's a bunch of tourist things. This big German guy comes up, puts his hand on my shoulder. And he said, you know, when I got engaged, I got down on my knee and I proposed. I said, well, do you see this ground? It's got bird crap and all kinds of stuff. So he said, and we're arguing back and forth. This Japanese guy comes along. He hears the argument. He gets involved. He's arguing. So his wife comes along and puts a blanket out on the ground. So the German guy said, well, you got to go for it now. I said, no, I really don't. But, you know, I'm good. Everybody, there's about 30, 40 people standing around us at this point. They're all trying to encourage me to get on the ground. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. Got on my knee, and I proposed. And she hesitated. I said, look, don't make me look bad. So she said yes. And later on that year, she got out of the military. She came back home. I came here to get her and bring her back to Maryland. And Quillian was, met Deborah first. Marilyn said, well, you know, I got to run a couple errands. Quillian's gonna take you to my mother's house. So, okay, fine. Had an old BMW. I'm riding through town styling. So we get down this long, dark road. And he says, I'm sorry, sir, you got to make a turn here. And I looked, and it was a dirt road. So I pulled the car over, and I said, listen, little boy, I think if you're going to play a joke on the guy from New Jersey, this is not the time. I said, I've seen those horror movies. They all start with people going down a dirt road. I'm not doing it. So he said, I'm telling you, sir, that's where my grandmother lives. I said, listen, you're 11 years old. I can kill you, throw you in the ditch, and I'll be back in D.C. in a few hours. Nobody will ever know. He said, I swear to you, that's where she lives. I said, okay, I'm trusting you. So he made the turn. So he said, okay, you got to turn here. Now we're on a smaller dirt road. I said, man, it's not the way to go. So we got to our mother's house. He opened the door. The car didn't have you stop moving. He jumped out the car and ran. But that was in November. In December, we got married. couple weeks later, we went to a dinner party, and he was a military, he was an Army doctor. Marilyn shook his hand, and it hurt. She pulled her hand back, and he says, "Let me see your hands." He started looking at her hands, and we didn't know what kind of doctor he was. He said, "But I believe you have rheumatoid arthritis." He said, "I need you to come." I was still in the military, so we took her to Walter Reed, and he diagnosed her and said, "This is what you have. This is a debilitating disease, and it's going to get a lot worse." I said, "Okay." I was getting out. We had to go see a specialist. And she said, "Well, you didn't sign on for this. How do you feel about that?" I said, "Well, I'm in for the long haul. This is not a problem. It is what it is." A month and a half later, we went to see the specialist, and he asked her if she wanted to have children. Of course, she said yes. He said, "Well, it's going to be a little complicated. So you would have to be off your medications for 6 months before you got pregnant, and then you won't be able to take that medication for, at that point, it would be about 2 years." So we made the agreement, and Doc said, "Well, you could move to West Texas, New Mexico, or Arizona with the dry heat. You may be able to function while being pregnant." I said, "That's way too hot for me." So I said, "Look, we got a lot of friends. We're going to end up with nieces, nephews, godkids, so we're good. We're okay." And she said, "Are you sure? Because, we just got married, and if you don't want to be here, you could bail." And what? I said, "Look, we're in this together. So your problem is my problem. You accepted me for who I am. I'm just a little messed up, but you're here." So I said, "Well, that's good." And I said, "You've got rheumatoid arthritis, and you're a little crazy. So it's all right." So, but I heard what everybody said and what people say about her. But let me tell you about Marilyn that I knew, not the Nisi, not the Phoebe. Let me tell you who I knew. She was very stubborn, didn't care whether it made sense or not. She would stick to it. And so we were building, we saved up for 10 years, and we had a house built. And she wanted to come every weekend to go take a picture of that house. Even before there was actually a house, it was just a dirt lot. So we would go down every weekend. So this one weekend we go down, and it had been raining, it was muddy, it was nasty, and it was just a foundation. They were preparing a foundation, so there's piles of dirt everywhere. So she said, "Well, I want to get out and take pictures." I said, "Marilyn, it's raining." I said, "Your legs hurt and everything. Let's just wave to the lot and just move on. I want to take pictures. You got to take pictures." Okay. So she gets out the car. She runs up. Her house is on a hill, so she runs up on the hill. And I said, "Let me get the camera." So as I get the camera, she goes to the back. She said, "I'm going to stand on this big mound of dirt and take my picture." I said, "Okay, whatever." So I go get the camera, adjust the camera before cell phones. So I'm putting a lens, doing everything I need to do. I turn around, and she's not standing on the hill. And I'm like, she's playing, right? She's running around and hiding in the rain. So as I walk up, I'm just screaming for her, "Where are you?" So after a while, I see a hand come up over the back of the hill. She had stood on the back of the hill and fell down and rolled down and popped into a mud puddle. It was just filthy. So I said, "I told you not to get on that hill." "Well, I didn't take the picture." I said, "No, you didn't, but you did it. So now we have to go home. I got a car with leather seats, and she's covered with mud. So we have to have a discussion in the rain." So I said, my friend Tyrone, that lived across the street from me, he saw us out there, saw her standing in the mud. I'm looking at my car. Neither one of us budging, because she was not getting in the car. He brought plastic bags out and put over my seat so she could get in the car. I said, "Look, I told her to do it. She did it." A few years back, a friend of ours, a very good friend, invited us to be in her wedding. So she wanted Marilyn in the wedding party, wanted me in the wedding party. So the night before, we have the rehearsal, and the lady came and bought all of the bridesmaids' shoes. And Marilyn had little heels. She normally didn't wear heels. But I took the shoes out of the box, and I looked at them, and they were smooth leather on the bottom. And I'm looking at the floor of this place, and it's all granite and marble. I said, "Listen, these shoes are going to be slippery. You're going to fall. You don't have to tell me whatever. I don't need to hear what she's going. I said, you're going to fall. You don't know everything. Where she just went on, and I said, you got to do something with these shoes. I'll put a little patch on them. You'll be okay. You don't need mine. You need to mind your business. Leave my shoes alone. Okay, fine. Next day we have the wedding, and after service, we all turned to walk back down the aisle. One of the girls in front of us, she started to fall. And the guy sitting in the audience, he grabbed her and pushed her back up. I said, did you see that? She said, you need to mind your business. Okay, fine. So they bring us in, and we're up on this big platform looking down at everybody over the dance floor. So after a while, Marilyn said, well, I got to go to the ladies' room. Okay, fine. So she leaves. I said, be careful. She said, you need to mind your business. Okay? So she goes, walks around, goes out the door, and I see her coming back, and this guy sitting next to me in the wedding party. So she comes around, she starts walking, and instead of walking along where the rug is, where all the tables were, she decides to cut across the dance floor, and she's dancing while she's walking. So she got close to the side, she fell. I mean, feet all up in the air, and just fell. So anyway, I'm sitting there watching, and the people run out. Go to grab her, they're trying to pick up. The guy next to me says, hey, is that your wife? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, are you going to help her? I said, absolutely not. He said, well, why not? I said, well, she told me to mind my business. That's not my business. I'll be good. So everybody runs over to her, they pick her up, and they grab her, are you okay? She said, yeah, I'm okay. She comes up and she sits to me and she starts yelling at me. Why did you come out there and pick me up? You told me to mind my business. You can't have it both ways. So she's sitting there, she's giving me a little dirty look. I said, listen, here's the deal. You knew I was messed up when you met me. You knew I was messed up when you married me. But you decided to do it anyway. So, is it really my fault or is it your fault? But look, I just wanted to tell everybody that Marilyn and I had a plan. If she would go first or I would go first, we knew that we had a plan and a path to be on. So she's not here. She's not next to me on the path, but I know she's pushing me on, and I will continue. And I know everybody's concerned, you know, what's going to happen. You know, I live up north, what's going to go. But look, I kept my word always. Made sure we laughed every day. We had fun. Some days she would tell people he gets started real early, and I just tell him, don't talk to me the rest of the day. Just shut up. And I can hear her right now say, shut up, Ron. Just shut your mouth. So I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to continue on that path. And if I need support, or I need to call, or I need to laugh, or I need to pick on my brother-in-law, because the football season's coming up. I'm not a football guy, but I love it. Any team his team is playing, if the other team is winning, I call up, I say, Cookie, my team's winning. I said, you don't have a team. Yes, I do, the one that's winning. So I'll be able to talk football with him, and I have other friends that came from Florida, from New Jersey. They wanted to be here today just because they all knew Marilyn, they all loved her. And she loved everybody. She had a good time. So please know that right before all this happened, we were laughing about something stupid I said, and she was telling me to shut up. So